Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby and I do book videos and reading vlogs on here. Today's video is probably the most excited I have been to film a video on here. I've waited a few months to film this video and we have been moving in and out of houses and we've finally moved into our new home. It's still kind of under a bit of construction and there's a lot of work going on all over the place, but I'm finally reunited with all of my books and I've gone through them all and I've categorized them, and I'm so excited to be sharing a book tour of all of the books that I own. I just wanted to quickly do a disclaimer that I have been collecting all of these books for probably about 10 or more years now. A lot of these books that I have behind me have been sourced secondhand from op shops or online from websites like World of Books, and also a lot of them have been gifted to me as well. So this is a whole collection of books that I have accumulated over years and years and years of reading, and also in the future I am wanting to do a bit of an unhaul of some of the books, but I thought I'd do a big book tour of all the books I own before I do that. A lot of these are very, very special books to me. I am so excited to read a lot of these. I've also read a lot of these. I've got different piles behind me. I've tried to organize them into different categories and genres, but a few genres kind of like cross over with the books. So with the fiction piles, there's a lot of literary fiction, there's also historical fiction and fiction with parts of magical realism and stuff. So it was kind of hard to separate genres into complete different genres because some have multiple genres in them, but I did my best to try and categorize them. And I also put all of the general fiction into alphabetical order, which took me so long, and I'm not really sure why I did that because it ended up taking way longer than I thought, but it makes it kind of interesting when I talk about it. I'm going to try and go from A to Z and hopefully I haven't messed up the order behind me. But yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail of each book because we'll be here for hours. I have over 400 books behind me, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about each book and just give my thoughts on some of them and let you know if I've read them, if they're my favorites, if I'm excited to read them, and why I might have them in my collection. But I'm going to jump in right now, get straight into it, otherwise we'll be here for so long. So I'm going to start with the first category. So I've got the first pile here with me. This is my classics. Majority of these are secondhand and sourced from op shops and ones that I've had for quite a long time. So yeah, I'll jump right into it. A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Miss Reed's Storm in the Village. This one is so pretty. The Catcher in the Rye. Snowflake by Paul Gallico. This one's such an old, beautiful edition. Such a pretty hardback. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is my dad's favorite book and I think this is my dad's edition of this. A Room with a View. The God of Small Things. The Woman Destroyed by Simone de Beauvoir. Such a pretty cover. Valley of the Dolls. Flowers for Mrs. Harris. This was a really cute story and I also watched the film for this one. The Little Prince, which I have read over and over again so many times. What We Talk About When We Talk About Love. Anne of Green Gables. 1984 by George Orwell. I have not read this one yet, but I've read Animal Farm. Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. Jane Eyre. Sense and Sensibility. And also Emma by Jane Austen. Such a cute edition. 100 Years of Solitude. Heart of Darkness, which we studied this one in school and I have annotated this one heaps and I really enjoyed this novel. I think I've got a collection of books that I was studying in year 12 here. So we did The Great Gatsby as well, which I've got 2 editions of. This one was the one I used at school and this one's just a really cool, beautiful cover that I found at an op shop. I love the car and the cover of this one. So pretty. We have some Ernest Hemingway here. So we've got The Old Man and the Sea, Green Hills of Africa, and A Movable Feast. I have not read any Ernest Hemingway yet, but I'm really excited to read his work. I've got 2 copies of A Room of One's Own, which I really loved reading, and then The Waves by Virginia Woolf, which I have not read yet, but I'm really excited to get around to. Then Lolly Willows, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, The Picture of Dorian Gray, which I really want to read soon, Crossing to Safety, The Handmaid's Tale, Of Mice and Men, and then we have some Hermann Hesse here. I've only read one Hermann Hesse, which was Demian, and I've also got Siddhartha and Rosheld, these ones. The Moon and Sixpence, Happy Valley, Bonjour Tristesse, and the last classic that I have is a really beautiful edition of The Unbearable Lightness of being. So these are all my classics. Now we are moving on to our fiction books. This is the biggest category that I have. The majority of them are literary fiction. There's also historical fiction, just general fiction. A lot of them are Australian authors, new releases, and a lot of books that I have not read yet that I'm really excited to read. So this one is probably the most exciting one to talk about. So starting with A, we have The List, The White Tiger, which was nominated for the Booker Prize in 2008, and I found this copy recently and I really want to read this one. Then we have some Dolly Alderton, which is one of my absolute favorite authors, and I'm matching this book cover at the moment. This is Ghosts, one of my favorite books ever, and also Good Material, which I absolutely love. I also have Everything We Know About Love, but that's in my non-fiction section, so I've got these two Dolly Aldertons and I'm going to see her in November and I'm so excited. Then we have Where I Slept. Cold Enough for Snow was such a gorgeous, beautiful book about motherhood and a relationship with mother and daughter. Bunny, which was absolutely crazy and gives off major secret history vibes. A Man Called Ovi, which I've heard is really sad and I've been wanting to read this one for so long. Flabbert's Parrot. New Animal by Ella Baxter. I just read her new debut Woo Woo and I loved it, so I'm excited to read this one soon. I found this copy in an op shop. It was someone's advanced readers copy edition of it. I have 2 copies of Sunbathing. Do not ask me why I have 2, but this is one of my favorite books I've ever read. I love Isabel Beach's writing so much, so I've got 2 copies of that. When Things Are Alive They Hum. What the World Would Look Like When All the Water Leaves Us. Between a Wolf and a Dog. Probably in my top 3 books, or possibly even my favorite book of all time, we have Body Friend by Catherine Brabin. This is a Melbourne author writing about illness and connection to water, and I just love this book so much and I highly recommend. In Watermelon Sugar, which is the book that Harry Styles based his Watermelon Sugar song off. The New Me by Hayley Butler. The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Joan, which I think is historical fiction. This one is She Is Haunted, but it says Who is Paige Clark on the front because that is the author and that was her debut novel, and it's also an advanced reader's copy that I found in an op shop. So it is She Is Haunted, but it's got the author on the front. Foreign Soil by Maxine Beneva Clark. I studied this one in school as well. It's a collection of short stories and it's by an Australian author and it was really good. Another absolute favourite of all time is Everyone and Everything, also another Australian author set in Sydney. And The Extinction of Irina Ray. That is the first pile. We're up to C. Next pile. Okay, now we have my Rachel Cusk collections. I have the Outline trilogy here. So we've got Outline, Transit, and Kudos. The covers of these are so gorgeous. I love them so much. I love Rachel Cusk. Her writing is probably one of my absolute favourites of all time, and I love this trilogy. It's probably my favourite of her work. Then Saving Agnes was amazing as well, and then Arlington Park, which I have not read yet, so gotta get around to reading this one. Talking at Night by Claire Daverley was actually one of our book club picks for last month, I think, and I didn't get around to reading it, but I've heard that it gives off major Sally Rooney Normal People vibes, so I'm excited to read it. I think I'm just a bit intimidated by the size of this novel. Tennis Lessons, Exciting Times, Alamino P, which is such a fun book. It's a play on the use of letters and it is very quirky and a lot of magical realism, and I think it's like a young adult, but I absolutely loved this book. It's just all about the alphabet and it sounds dorky, but it's really fun to read. I love this one. Scaffolding by Lauren Alkin is like one of my absolute favorite books that I've read this year. I'm very excited to talk about this one more in another video, but yeah, Scaffolding. You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. The Virgin Suicides, Middlesex. And then we have Elena Ferrante's series here. I am missing one of them, but I have My Brilliant Friend, and then I'm missing the second, and then I have Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay, and The Story of the Lost Child. I have not read any of these yet. I have had this on my TBR for so long, but I just have not got around to reading it yet. I think I'm really excited to read this series, and I'm scared it's going to disappoint me, but everything I've read about it is amazing, so I just need to get on with it and read it. I think I might read it this summer. I'm really excited to read this. It's Italian translated literature. I Couldn't Love You More, Felix Culpa, which was a random book that I found at an op shop, and I picked it up because it's got a quote from Ali Smith on the cover, and anything that Ali Smith recommends is something that I will pick up. Repentance, Happy Hour, Poor Things, Green Dot, which is another Australian fiction, Transcendent Kingdom, Burncoat, and I absolutely love the cover design of this one. Games and Rituals, The Kite Runner, which I really want to get around to reading this one soon. And I have 2 books from Han Kang, which is Human Acts and The Vegetarian, and I have not read either of these. The Haters by Robin Harding. Orbital, which I just recently bought. It was nominated for the Booker Prize this year. I'm really excited to get reading this one. Early Morning Riser, Really Good Actually, which was really good actually. The Paper Palace. And then 2 books by Hild Hinton are The Loudness of Unsaid Things and A Solitary Walk on the Moon. I've only read this one, but I loved it, so I'm excited to read her other book. And onto my 4th pile of fiction books. Falling over. We've got Music for Torching. Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, which is one of the books I read so long ago when I first started getting back into reading, and I loved. I've got some Kazuo Ishiguro books here. I've got Clara and the Sun, which I read recently, and that was my first book of his and made me absolutely love his writing. And then I've got 2 copies of Never Let Me Go here. I really love this edition, and I also love this one too, and I couldn't decide which one I liked better, but I'm really excited to read this one so soon. Ruth, All Fours is a very new release that I just got recently. And then Before the Coffee Gets Cold and Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe. And some more translated fiction here. We've got All the Lovers in the Night and Heaven, Writers and Lovers by Lily King, and Midnight All Day. And then 2 more books from the same author. We've got Whereabouts by Jhumpa Lahiri and Interpreter of Miladies. And then we've got The Delicate Dream Department Store. This is a translated Korean novel, and I loved this book so much. It's so whimsical and fun. Pachinko, The Work by Bree Lee, and then one of my absolute favorite authors of all time. I have a few of her books here. Deborah Levy. We've got the 3 books from her autobiography. Things I Don't Want to Know, The Cost of Living, and Real Estate, and then Hot Milk and Swimming Home. And I've read all of these ones, but I need to get my hands on some of her other books. Where Reasons End, No One Is Talking About This, Red, and Little Plum, both Australian authors. And then Coco Malors, I've got Cleopatra and Frankenstein and Blue Sisters, and I absolutely love the covers of these ones. They're just gorgeous. Onto the 5th pile, I have some Otessa Moshfegh here. So we've got Homesick for Another World, My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which I was quite disappointed by, and then Lapvona, which was such a crazy read, but I think I actually enjoyed it. I'm not quite sure. I just had an avalanche of books. Some Murakami, Kafka on the Shore, and The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. I have not read any Murakami yet, so I'll have to go into these ones soon. The Beasting by Paul Murray, such a big book. The 16 Trees of Song. Open Water, which is actually our book club pick for this month in September. No Hard Feelings, an Australian author. Hamnet. The Swimmers is one of my absolute favourite books of all time. And then we have some Anne Patchett. I've got 2 copies of Tom Lake. I originally had bought the special edition hardcover, and then I found a paperback version at the op shop because I prefer to read in paperback, but this edition is just gorgeous, and it's also signed by the author herself. I love this story so much. And then The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. 2 Claudia Pinheiro books. We've got Elena Knows and A Little Luck. And then Max Porter, we've got Lanny and Grief is the Thing with Feathers. The Overstory, Love and Virtue by Diana Reid, and then Seeing Other People by Diana Reid. I actually have 2 copies of this one because one got water damaged and I found another copy at the op shop. And then Taylor Jenkins Reid, we have Daisy Jones and the Six, and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and this one's got like a gold page edge. It's so pretty. And then Greta and Veldon. This Could Be Everything. 3 copies of The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart. Do not ask me why I have 3, it's just kind of happened. I've been gifted them multiple times, and I think people got the memo that I really like flowers. And then my Sally Rooney collection, I have Normal People, my favorite edition of any book ever, Conversations with Friends, and it's just such a beautiful edition. And Beautiful World, Where Are You? A Room Called Earth, For the Forest of a Bird, Empathy, The Island of Sea Woman. I saw this one in an op shop and I had never seen it before, but I was very, very intrigued by the premise of this book. The Island of Missing Trees. I loved this book so much and I'm so excited to read more of her work. I also have The 40 Rules of Love. And then another one of my absolute favorite authors is Ali Smith, and I have a full collection here. I have her seasonal quartet, which has Autumn, Winter, Spring and Summer, Artful, Public Library and Other Stories, How to Be Both, and The Accidental. Then onto the final pile of my fiction books. We have Brat, a ghost story. Some Zadie Smith. We have On Beauty, White Teeth, and Swing Time. I have not read any Zadie Smith yet, apart from one of her non-fictions, I think. But I love her writing, so I'm very excited to read these ones. When I Sing Mountains Dance, Something Bad Is Going to Happen. I Hope This Finds You Well, which is a book that I read recently. It is like a comedy, kind of like The Office vibes. It's very funny and there's a bit of romance in it. 3 Women, The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and The Goldfinch, which is such a big book. The Sirens Sing, Spoiled Creatures. Then I have a collection of Anne Tyler books here, which I have not actually read any Anne Tyler yet, but I've accumulated quite a lot from op shops. I always see her work there. Breathing Lessons, Back When We Were Grown-Ups, Dinner at the Homesick Restaurant, Saint Maybe, and 2 copies of French Braid, My Husband, Girls on Fire, The Safe Keep, which is another Booker Prize nominee in the long list this year. I just recently got this one as well and it is such a pretty edition. Diary of a Void, A Little Life, which has been on my shelves for too long and I'm still too scared to pick up, but maybe this year, I don't know, maybe next year. But yeah, A Little Life. Butter, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And finally, the last book in the fiction section genre is The Book Thief. Let's talk about some romance. I don't typically read romance. I tend to read books that have romance as a subgenre, but I do have a little bit of a collection of romance here. So we've got The Hating Game, One Day, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, Twisted Games, and I also have Twisted Love, but I have no idea where it's gone. And I didn't even like Twisted Love, and I don't think I will ever read this, so it's probably going to be one of the books that I unhaul in another video soon. Book Lovers by Emily Henry and Happy Place. I didn't like Book Lovers, but I loved Happy Place, so I'm really excited to read Funny Story soon. And then we have this series that I almost put in the general fiction section, but I thought I'll put it with the romance books. There's a lot of romance in this, but there's also other things going on in this series as well. But this is the Magnolia Park series by Jessa Hastings. I have read every book that's been published by her so far in this series, and I have loved every single one of them. So much drama and so much fun to read. But we've got Magnolia Parks, Daisy Hates, Magnolia Parks Into the Dark, such a big book, Daisy Hates The Great Undoing, and then the last one that's been released is Magnolia Parks The Long Way Home, and I just can't get over how beautiful these covers are. Now we have a fun collection of thrillers and murder mystery books. Firekeeper's Daughter, The Birthday Party, One of Us is Lying, The Thursday Murder Club, Verity, which is the only Colleen Hoover book I own. The only one I've ever read, the only one I will read, and I think I'm going to be getting rid of this one really soon because I hated it so much. Gone Girl. Then to Jane Harper, we have The Lost Man and The Dry, an Australian author. The Silent Patient and The Maidens. The Woman in the Library. And we have some Stephen King here. The Hunting Party and The Girl on the Train. And then I have a really big collection of Agatha Christie here, which I'll quickly go through, but they're all old editions and they are so gorgeous. Murder on the Orient Express, And Then There Were None. The Murder at the Vicarage. The Body in the Library. Ordeal by Innocence. Third Girl. Partners in Crime. Seven Dials Mystery. Taken at the Flood. Five Little Pigs. The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Pale Horse. Endless Night. Death in the Clouds. I love this cover so much. A Pocket Full of Rye. And finally, Peril at End House. And then I have None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I highly recommend listening to the audiobook of this one and also reading it. So fun. None Shall Sleep, which my little brother just started reading and I also have a copy of, so we're gonna do a little buddy read of this one. And then finally, in the thriller murder mystery genre, we have See What I Have Done, which is such a pretty cover. Look at that. Now onto some fantasy. I have quite a lot of fantasy here as well. Starting off with The Hobbit. I have 2 copies of The Hobbit here. Such pretty editions. This one is illustrated. This one is just gorgeous and one of my favorite fantasy books of all time. And then I have some old editions of Lord of the Rings. So I've got The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King. I have not read The Lord of the Rings yet, but I am very excited to read it soon. And when I am reading it, I will probably be reading this edition, which is all of the Lord of the Rings in one book. This is massive. Then I have a collection of Sarah J. Maas here. I have not read any of the ones that I've got here, but I have read Throne of Glass, which I ended up giving to one of my friends. I did not like Throne of Glass, but I feel like I'm gonna like these ones more than I liked Throne of Glass. So I've got House of Earth and Blood, which I accidentally actually got 2 copies of these ones because I thought they were 2 different books, but they are the same book. And then House of Sky and Breath. And then I've got some of the A Court of Thorns and Roses books that I've collected over the years. I've got A Court of Thorns and Roses, and then A Court of Wings and Ruin, and then A Court of Silver Flames. So hopefully I can get around to reading those ones soon because it has been a long time coming. Then also in fantasy, I've got Once Upon a Broken Heart, Fairy Tale by Stephen King, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I loved this series so much. Also got it signed by R.F. Kuang. And then we have here my collection of Marissa Meyer books, which was my absolute favorite author in high school. I have read all of the books that she has released. They're very fun superhero fantasy books and also fairy tales and just so much fun. So these are Marissa Meyer. So I've got the Lunar Chronicles series of Cinder and also a paperback of Cinder. Scarlet, Cress, and also a paperback of Cress. This is my favorite in the series, along with also the last one, which is Winter, which I also have a paperback of. Sorry about that, my camera just died, but I was just saying I've got Winter, and then Stars Above is a short story collection in the Lunar Chronicles, and then Wires and Nerve is a graphic novel from the same series. And then we have the Renegade series, which is a superhero story. Renegades, Arch Enemies, and Supernova. And then we have a standalone by Marissa Meyer, which is Heartless, which is a Queen of Hearts, Alice in Wonderland retelling. And then Gilded, and Curse. Then continuing on with the fantasy genre, I have Wildwood Dancing, This Is How You Lose the Time War, The Song of Achilles, Daughter of the Forest, Wildwood, which is YA. Another YA is Gallant, Now She Is Witch, Assassin's Apprentice, Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, Blood of Elves. I did this one as a blind date with the book and I was a little bit disappointed by this fantasy. Got Shadow and Bone, Six of Crows, and Crooked Kingdom. The Cruel Prince, which I DNF'd because I did not like, but I am wanting to try and read again. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, I am so excited to read. Never by Jessa Hastings, which was so disappointing. I really did not like this book. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and then Fourth Wing. So that is all the fantasy books that I have. I am in a bit of chaos here. There are books literally everywhere, so I'm going to try and clean up before I continue on to the next books. Alright, next I have a little collection of graphic novels. So I've got Lightfall, which is a YA. The illustrations in this one are just gorgeous. The whole Heartstopper series, such a beautiful graphic novel series. Primates, which is also another gorgeous illustrated graphic novel. Wings of Fire, one of our dragons, very fun. And then The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Here's some poetry and some plays. The Penguin Book of Australian Verse. I love the cover of this one so much. Some Mary Oliver here. We've got Upstream and 1,000 Mornings. I do want to read some more of her work. Ocean Vuong, Night Sky with Exit Wounds. Sylvia Plath, Ariel, which I studied in school. And then some Australian poetry, Old/New World. And then the plays that I have here, we've got a few Shakespeare. We've got Othello, Twelfth Night, Hamlet, and then I've got 3 copies of my favourite Shakespeare play, A Midsummer Night's Dream. And then this one is a Shakespeare Made Easy kind of translated version of it. And then this cover is just so pretty. It's got the fairies on the front. Then Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, which I also studied in school. The Importance of Being Earnest. And that is all for the plays. I'm just going to quickly run through. I've got some childhood books here, books that I've kept from when I was very young. I've got a lot of books on fairies. I've got this one on the Tinkerbell Neverland fairies and some other ones of these. These were my absolute favourite when I was very young. The Jungle Book, Peter Pan, and some Enid Blyton, which was my favourite author when I was very little. The Mystery of the Disappearing Cat, some Secret Seven, and the Magic Faraway Tree. The Story of Dr. Dolittle, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, lots of copies of Winnie the Pooh, 2 copies of Wind in the Willows, which is also the same illustrator as Winnie the Pooh. We are almost wrapping up. I just have to talk about the non-fiction books that I have and some coffee table art books. So in the non-fiction section we have The Growth of Plants, 2 books that I got from the Melbourne Art Book Fair, Silver and Fossil, they're from the same collection. 2 books from this collection, it was Penguin's Green Ideas, Every Species is a Masterpiece and All Art is Ecological. I took these with me on a trip, so they're very battered and very well used. Silent Spring, Losing Eden. A lot of these non-fictions are nature writing, my favourite non-fiction. Exploring Nature with a Camera, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, Catch Me a Colobus, A Sloth in the Family. This is a really wholesome story. I love this one. And then I've got By the River and At the Pond, both from the same series. Really gorgeous writing in these ones. Small Bodies of Water, one of my favourite nature writing books, and also a memoir. Gathering Moss, In Their Branches, stories about trees from lots of Australian authors. Light Rains Sometimes Fall, very interesting book talking about Japan's different seasons. The Insect World, such a pretty cover. Then I have some non-fiction books talking about illness. So The Body Keeps the Score, The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating, Poor Little Sick Girls, On Being Ill by Virginia Woolf and essays on her essay, Constellations, I Feel Bad About My Neck, A Fortunate Woman, Growing Up Disabled in Australia, and then some books on endometriosis. We've got How to Endo and just an endometriosis diet book. Then some non-fiction books that are like philosophical. We've got Ishmael, The Power of Now, The Tale of Pooh, and The Tea of Piglet. Very cute, wholesome books. In Praise of Shadows, The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama, and Teach Yourself to Think. And some more non-fiction, I have Figuring the Beauty of Everyday Things, The Miracle of Mindfulness, Quiet, and The Highly Sensitive Person, Untamed, Writing a Novel. Another one about writing is Writers at Work. It's a collection of essays from different writers. The Planets, which is a book about the solar system and the universe. And then Marvel Comics, a non-fiction about the Marvel comics and movies. Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. Love this book so much. The Salt Path. This was a book that I read recently and it's probably one of my absolute favourite books of all time now. This was such a gorgeous, touching story. Women Who Run with the Wolves. The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson and also Bluets. Crying in H Mart. All About Love. Joan Didion, The Year of Magical Thinking. Zadie Smith, Intimations. Then 3 Patti Smith books here. We've got M Train, Year of the Monkey, and Just Kids. Little Weirds by Jenny Slate. Educated, Love Stories, and Blueberries, and The Most Important Job. Just have this pile left, some more non-fiction, and then just a mixture of different coffee table, beautiful illustrated and photography books. Yoga and Health. Some 2 very cute books here. We've got Seashells and A Guide to Painting, very cute little pocket books. Some Jane Goodall. I love reading about her story. I've got Through a Window and Hope for Animals and Their World. Then I also have some David Attenborough here. I've got Life on Earth and The Life of Birds by David Attenborough. I also have some of his other books, but I'm not sure where they are at the moment. I have this gorgeous illustrated book about Madagascar and the nature. Just some really beautiful illustrations here on all the birds and everything. So pretty. This is a guide to the plants of the Grampians, which is a place near me. All the wildflowers that are photographed there. This is probably one of my favorite books that I own. This is a illustrated book of flowers. It is just so pretty and so old, and like it's just so gorgeous. Look at that. Flora, another flower book. I have lots of flower books that I've collected from my career of being a florist. A big book, it is the Oxford Dictionary of Quotations. This one is so pretty and so fun to look through. There's lots of old quotes in this one. The Planter's Guide to Plants and Flowers. Snails. It's a really old, cute book illustrated about snails, and I love snails. The Work of E.H. Shepard. This is the illustrator of Winnie the Pooh and Winnie the Willows, and it's all the behind the scenes of all his work and everything. It's really cool. The Art of Walt Disney. A book about flowers again. This one is Herbs and Flowers. A very big encyclopedia of the earth. This one's a really fun one to look through. And then I have 2 books on the art of different movies, Disney movies. We've got The Art of Moana and The Art of Tangled. These are my 2 favorite Disney movies. And I have another book that I absolutely love that's also illustrated and just about flowers and stuff. This is The Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady. This is so pretty. I love it. Flower arranging, Australian flower arranging. And then last but not least in my whole collection, I have The Little Prince picture book. This is in Mandarin and it is so beautiful, the illustrations, and I just obviously can't read it, but the illustrations are really gorgeous. And yeah, these are all of the books that I own. There's over 400 of them, and I think it's about time I go on a book buying ban for a few months and get around to reading some more of these ones. I have read a lot of these books, but yeah, it would be good to unhaul and just go through and see which ones I want to keep and throw away. Let me know if you have read any of these books and have enjoyed them, or if you want to read any of these books, or if they're on your TBR or anything. Yeah, it's getting dark outside now, so it's a sign that I have been talking for way too long. Yeah, thank you so much for watching if you've watched all of this video, and I will see you next time in another video.